Hello everybody and welcome to a retrospective review of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Today we're going to reminisce everything Ratchet and Clank, specifically Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, because that game is now 2 years old as of the 11th of June, I think. And today I'm joined by Jake from Game Explain.
Hello everybody. Adam, thank you so much for having me. I love
Thank you.
Ratchet and Clank. I'm so glad you asked me to do this. I turned the game on, started playing it, was just filled with so many feelings and emotions. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, well, Ratchet and Clank for me, I'm sure if anyone is, a fan of this channel, Ratchet and Clank is a massive, massive series for me. Probably this or Zelda are my favorite. I think Zelda's the better franchise, but Ratchet and Clank's probably my favorite franchise.
Cool.
So I think the best place to just kick this off is, Jake, what's your history with the series? Have you played all the games? You've only played a few games, and what's your favorite game as well?
Oh, okay, yeah, I've played all of the games, including all of the spin-offs. I am a massive Ratchet and Clank fan. Adam, one of my key childhood memories is I remember being in a grocery store with my mom, and I was new to the PlayStation 2 ecosystem. And I was just looking at the games as you do when they're there, going down the aisles, and Ratchet and Clank 1 and 2 were both already out. And I saw them on the shelves, and I was looking at them, and my mom came over to me, and I don't know why. I don't know what was going on that day, but she was like, "Do you want those games?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, let's get Ratchet and Clank. I guess I'm going to play Ratchet and Clank." And she's like, "We'll get both." And I was like, "Oh, really, Mom? Dude." So went home with Ratchet and Clank, the first two games, had them both, played them right in order, just like that, played through them, absolutely loved them. And then it wasn't that long, I don't think, until Ratchet and Clank 3 was going to come out. So all of a sudden I was on this ride where I was like, wow, this is the greatest experience of my life. It's I just saw the first two movies, now I'm waiting for the third. And this is definitely, Ratchet and Clank is just one of my favorite franchises of all time. I think the characters are some of my favorite video game characters of all time. The stories in those early games just hit on a lot of great buttons for me. There's so much that I appreciated as a kid, and now there's so much looking back that I appreciate now, having the mind I do. But you asked my favorite Ratchet and Clank game. This is a weird one. So I just want no judgment. I want a judgment-free zone.
Oh, yeah, no. You are getting judged. Don't worry, Jake.
Okay, all right. Ratchet Deadlocked.
Oh,
just
yeah,
came.
okay, no, yeah. Ratchet Gladiator
yeah.
over here in Europe. Best
Oh,
Ratchet
right.
and Clank game, yeah.
That it came at the exact right time in my life. The aesthetic, everything it had going for it, that weird multiplayer mode, the arena challenges. To me, that was exactly what I wanted then and there. And the vibes are off the charts. Loved Ratchet and Clank Deadlocked. Ratchet Deadlocked.
Yes, that is, yeah. A quick history for me about the series is Ratchet and Clank. Just like Jake, I'll never forget the day I first got Ratchet and Clank 1. So there was a GameStop, which is sadly closing down in a couple of days. GameStop is gone from Ireland in a couple of days. GameStop, my local GameStop when I was a kid. I went over, see, my dad and my brother were into JRPGs and stuff. And I believe Final Fantasy X or X-2 was out. And my dad tried to sneak over to GameStop with my older brother and buy the game without me noticing. But guess what? I'm sneaky. I figured it out. So they had to bring me and they had to buy me a game. And I remember in school, I was listening to a story of my friends talking about this game. It's yeah, there's this guy and he has guns and he has this robot. And for whatever reason, I was thinking Ratchet was a human. But guess what? Ratchet wasn't a human. I saw the cover. I saw the Lombax holding the gun, Clank on his back. I took it home. And this was late at night because my dad usually worked late. So it could have been 7 o'clock by the time I got home. And I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, whatever age I was. And my mom was like, okay, you can play for an hour or so. So I played the first 2 levels of Ratchet and Clank. And, the level, I forget if it's the first or the second level. I kind of confuse it because of the 2016 remake. It's the one that isn't in the remake. The one where it has all the lumberjack.
Yes.
The lumberjack robots.
Yes.
That level just sticks out in my mind. I can remember playing it. I can remember my mom
oh my God, me too, Adam.
You have to go to bed. You have to go to bed. I was like, no, just please, just let me keep playing. I had a purple PS2 controller.
Nice.
Oh, well, it was kind of lilac-y. It was, And I was just like, oh, I love this game. I absolutely love it. And from there, my heart, it's just filled to the brim with Ratchet and Clank. I love every single part of Ratchet and Clank. I'm a complete fanboy. I love all the spin-offs. Even though I've never played Q-Force and I've never played Secret Agent Clank.
Q-Force, is that
Tower defense.
the MOBA one?
Yeah, it's something like
Okay.
that, or a tower defense. I think it was on Vita and PS3, if I remember correctly.
It was. The Vita port was extremely bad. I played this one too. It has a different name in America. That's why I was confused.
Ah, yes.
yeah,
Actually, that's something we talk about. So over here, Ratchet and Clank 1, 2, and 3 are just called Ratchet and Clank 1, 2, and 3. So we don't get Up Your Arsenal, we don't get Cone Commando, which is like one of the biggest parts about Ratchet and Clank is that humor. So over here, we miss that. So it's like Ratchet and Clank 1, 2, 3, and then Gladiator comes out. That's called Gladiator or Deadlocked. And then from then on, it's Ratchet and Clank Size Matters. Is that what it's that one called? You know, the PSP one?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's the same.
Yeah. But that was the first one that we got with kind of like the sexual innuendo titles. So for years, I didn't know what any of them were. But yeah, Ratchet and Clank, just an absolutely fantastic series. Gladiator is my favorite. I think Rift Apart is the best, but Gladiator is my favorite.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
Rift Apart. I just want to kick this off by saying this is a special game for me in many ways. And firstly, it's a Ratchet and Clank game. It's the brand new Ratchet and Clank game, brand new hardware, just all these fancy doodads and all this. But then also, this is my first big boy review. This is the first review I ever did for Game Explain, the first review I ever did professionally. And I'll never forget the night when I got the emails like, oh yeah, we have a PlayStation game for you to review there. So like, oh, that's cool. I was excited, obviously. And then I add Andre on Discord, and then he texts me. He's like, yeah, we have a PlayStation game. I was thinking, some indie game. It's like, it's Ratchet and Clank. And I was just like, what? What? I was like, I get to review Ratchet and Clank. So that was just like a special moment for me.
Yeah.
So pre-release, I didn't really watch much pre-release stuff because I generally just stay away from it. So going into it, I didn't really have much expectations. I knew the Rifts were like, oh yeah, the Rifts are so cool. We have the new SSD and all this crap. But yeah, Jake, what are your memories like pre-release? Like, were you excited for it?
Yeah, of course. Of course I was so excited for it. It's funny, the riffs, that comes to me immediately as well. I feel like that was the marketing juice was all about those riffs. And of course the power of the PS5, but I also, remember the delay and the some of the behind the scenes details about some troubled development. But Rift Apart, day one playing it, I feel like I was so excited to have a quote-unquote true PS5 game. And I think that was so much of the excitement behind it at the time. It was having that game that was like, this is a PS5 exclusive. It's going to look amazing, load fast, and it's going to take advantage of the DualSense controller. And oh boy, howdy does it. Oh man, what a time.
Yeah, see, the thing, in my review, I said that the haptics they were good, but they weren't amazing. And it's because...
You were using headphones!
What?
Were you using headphones when you played the game?
Probably, yes. I was using these, probably.
Big mistake, my friend. Big mistake.
Oh, really?
Yes. So when you wear headphones, you don't get the added benefit of alongside the haptics having the sound come out of the controller. And I think that they play really well in tandem together because you're getting little sounds from the speaker of the weapons doing things as you're like holding the triggers down a little bit and like it's coming alive alongside the haptics. Yes.
See, I turned that off. I hate sound coming out of my controller, so that's probably what I missed then. It was cool in the Wii when the Wii happened and Midna was speaking to you out of your controller, but then I was like, no, I don't like this. This is crap. Well, yeah, okay. maybe I just missed that. Yeah.
So here's the thing. I want to take a step back a little bit. I think for me, some of the magic of a Ratchet and Clank game, and this is resonating well right now because I feel it's almost similar to why I enjoy the Diablo games. It's that every time I get a new in the case of Diablo, ability. In the case of Ratchet, a weapon. It's like, oh, this alters the way I am physically playing the game, alters how I think about enemy encounters. Every time I get a new thing, I'm so excited about what that's going to add to the gameplay. And I think something I really love about Rift Apart is that it wasn't just about what the weapon was going to do for me. It was about like appreciating all of the accoutrements of the weapon, the sounds, the style, the look, and now the feeling in the controller. And I think I'm probably more positive on it than you, but I was and am still obsessed with the little like click it down a little bit, click it down a little bit more, the resistance in the triggers, and then feeling those like the little whir coming out of the controller while I'm doing it. It's such a cool sensory experience in this video game that really has it kind of like in the way that books can sometimes like fly off the page. I feel like this game kind of like comes out of the screen sometimes, and that's one of those ways how.
I thought that was put absolutely perfectly. That was like poetry. No, seriously, because I at the time I didn't really like them too much. But yesterday I streamed it, and when I was playing it, it was like, you know, the shotgun has the one barrel is a half press, and two barrels is a full press, and then I was like, maybe I was a bit harsh on that in my review. I think back then I was kind of simultaneously both trying to find things I didn't like about the game because I wanted to almost counteract my like love of the series, and then also I was very cognizant of my excitement of it being my first review. Yeah. So it was like that was like a balancing act that I definitely didn't get right back then. You know, that was my first review. Obviously, I'm a lot better now, but no, that was put very well. I know what you mean when it comes to like a Ratchet. Like all the guns in Ratchet games are basically characters. Like, I'd actually go a step further than Diablo, where, like, I get this new ability, and now I can, you know, synergize this with that, and just everything just, you know, works together. But it's like when you get a new weapon in a Ratchet game, it's like you've discovered a whole new character. Yes. And especially in the case of, like, Mr. Zircon and the Agents of Doom. Agents of Doom, I love them so much. I just remember them again, just as a kid, playing Ratchet and Clank, having the Agents of Doom running around. They're little iconic just guys, and they have the little earpieces coming out of them, and the lights on their head, and
big jaws.
Yeah, big massive jaws. And then I remember them like in the Clank sections where you'd have to summon them to follow you and like get them to attack, and it's like every weapon is as iconic as the last. And I think in most Ratchet games, I do feel like in most Ratchet games there's one or two weapons that are borderline useless. But from Rift Apart, I just watched a video about all of the weapons. There's only one weapon that I can remember that I didn't really like, and it was, I forget the name of it, but you know the one that summoned the shield in front of you?
Oh yeah, I always tried to use it.
But like all the other weapons were so good, and especially the Rhino in this game. Did you get the Rhino?
Oh my god, yeah, the Rhino's crazy in this game. So fun. You're always excited to see what comes out of it.
Yeah, and it's summoned like, you know, Jack, it's summoned Sly Cooper, it's summoned like the Thunderjaw from Horizon, just loads of PlayStation references. It was just brilliant. So I think one point that I want to, you started off talking about the troubled development. Surprisingly, this is actually the longest dev time of a Ratchet and Clank game. Previously, like Ratchet and Clank games were churned out, and they were literally made like in, I forget the amount of time, but it is like staggering. Like it could have been, you know, 14 months that they had to turn around like Ratchet 2 or Ratchet 3. Yeah. Like it was crazy. And this one was actually the longest one. And I think you can see that in the game. Like this is, like Ratchet 2016 looked good and like it was beautiful. But it was, to me, it felt like it was a bit shorter than this. Rift Apart felt like this was, I think the old Ratchet and Clank games were almost they were AAA, but they were on the low end of AAA. Yeah. Where now it's like Rift Apart is big budget AAA 3D action platformer. Like it's the best in class when it comes to gameplay. And just, it's kind of like everything, like just everything working well together. The particle effects, how fast the game is, all the different performance modes, just all the weapons, all the enemies, how beautiful the levels were. And then you get onto the rifts. And this was my biggest point of contention in the review, because I thought the rifts were these are so cool and we're going to show off the speed of the SSD. But when you got into the gameplay, they practically did nothing. They were just fancy grapple points
It felt cosmetic. It felt
Yeah,
more cosmetic than it felt meaningful. Yeah, it's I have that feeling too. It seems like the rifts were something that was maybe added later in development and weren't fully fleshed out. And I definitely leave Rift Apart thinking that there is so much more that they could do with the rifts. With that said, it is still very cool to, when you have the opportunity and there's like a portal in front of you, to kind of just like step in and look like halfway in and halfway out and do that kind of thing.
That is cool,
like that's always cool. And I gotta give them credit, because there are times in this game where it really does teleport you to like a different planet, and you're only in like a little area for a little amount of time, so you think it's a trick, but you can actually like pause the game and look at the map and you are on that planet. Like it actually has loaded you. Yeah, it's and that's just kind of like cool and interesting to me. And I think I've actually softened on this on my return to the game than I initially was when I think the rifts were so hyped up in the press for the game that my expectations for them were out of control. And now returning back to them, I see them for what they really are, which is just kind of like a cool visual flourish and something that makes the game feel a little more theatrical, a little more like there's
AAA like budget,
the scope is like getting big. So I think I appreciate them a little bit more on my return to the game now. But yeah, I'm with you. It's almost weird how they function as grapple points too, because you almost don't get the effect that you're going through a rift. It's like not done perfectly well. So it does kind of just feel like you're just going over somewhere. And yeah, so there's the little things wrong with it for sure.
Yeah, well, I think, to be honest, like just as you the point that you made there about like 2 years removed, you've softened on them. And I think that's because they leaned into them so hard with the with the marketing stuff. If they had just shown it off in a gameplay showcase, like, oh look, we can do this. Oh, that's cool. That looks interesting, and just moved on, it would have been fine. But it felt like everything was like, oh, look at these rifts, instant load, SSD. Look at all this crap. But now with the PC version, I think Sony were bullshitting us, because they said Insomniac, they were like, yeah. Now I have to preface this by saying, I am not a technical person, okay? Yeah. I could be speaking completely out of my hole here, but it's my channel. If I want to speak out of my hole, I will speak out of my hole. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But now they've released the specs for the PC version of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. And guess what? You don't need an SSD for it. So,
whoa! Now, that's hilarious.
I have heard a few things about Returnal. So, with the Returnal PC port, and I don't know how true this is, but it has really high RAM requirements. Mm-hmm. So people were speculating that how they're bypassing the SSD is by loading stuff into the RAM, so that the RAM can handle what the SSD would have done with the instant loading. And you know the way in Returnal, once you die, you press X, you're already back into the game. So that's where they kind of, apparently, they've been loading the stuff into the RAM to get around the SSD. So maybe that's what they're doing here. But like I showed it on my stream yesterday with the rifts, and there are certain rifts, where, as you said, you load into like completely different levels, which is really cool. But a lot of the rifts are just grapple points that bring you to a place that the majority of it is already rendered on your screen. Yeah. So it's like how impressive.
I don't even know why those are in the game, if I'm being totally honest with you. I don't. Yeah. It's not. It's never a particularly special experience when you move over to that side of the arena. I also don't even feel the need to do it ever.
I never did. I literally never did. And the thing is, I said it, it's like they could have incorporated into the gameplay a lot better by imagine if you pulled yourself into a rift in the middle of combat. Say like there was different color rifts. Say a red rift blows up when you go near it and deals damage to people around you. Or a gold rift increases like your bolt drop by 5% for 30 seconds or something. Mm-hmm, or like the green one increased your movement speed, or the blue one increased your fire rate, or something like that. It's like they could have done something like that to make it just like slightly more interesting in the gameplay, other than it just being a grapple point. But,
I mean, it's extremely weird to me that there wasn't like a rift or portal-esque weapon in the game, just because it seems like that was on the table. It seems like they could have done that. They could have made you shoot a thing off, it creates a rift there, and then you can grapple to your own rift.
Like a portal gun or something.
It seems like that's within their abilities in the game,
definitely.
So.
I mean, I trust Insomniac. They can't do any wrong recently. But now we're being very negative.
Yeah.
Rift Apart is still an amazing game. I think another big change, and it happened in the Future series, but it went even further here with Ratchet 2016 and Rift Apart, was that the first 3 Ratchet games are very, very distinct, very, I don't know, would you say like commentaries on capitalism, kind of their, making
100%.
Making jokes, and that's what makes them so good. And then the Future series went with kind of, we're trying to make like a cinematic universe kind of here where we have all these different characters and we're really trying to build the story of Ratchet and Clank. And I think they did a pretty decent job with it, actually. And then 2016 and Rift Apart kind of moved to a like Saturday morning cartoon kind of, where it's still entertaining, but I just think there's a certain je ne sais quoi, as the French would say. That's Italian, sorry. There's like a certain je ne sais quoi that like is just lost from the first 3 games that hasn't been replicated since Ratchet 3. Well, maybe Deadlocked and Size Matters. You could probably, I'm saying Deadlocked. I'm not American. I'm European. So what do you think? Because to me, Rift Apart almost reminded me of kind of like a Star Wars film.
Yeah.
It even had Star Wars like transitions in it, like when you're going to a planet. And it's very, the ragtag group of rebels is fighting the big evil guy, and there's these futuristic cities, and like, what did you make of the story? And especially Rivet. I didn't even touch on Rivet, but a lot of people love Rivet. And it's going to be interesting to see what the PC modding community does to her. But
what do I think of the story? Okay, let me tell you what I think. Okay, so I love those older Ratchet games. I do like what they are doing in their commentary, just because I kind of, especially at the time, it was something that you didn't see a lot of. But I kind of appreciate what the Ratchet games have been able to do through time, just because I think that they're growing up with their developers and a lot with their audience. Those original Ratchet games, which were turned around on almost a year-to-year basis, were made by like young 20-year-olds, where there was no official capacity game director, and they were just like, and now these people are growing up and their priorities change, and a lot of them have families, a lot of them have kids. And I think what you see is primarily in Ratchet and Clank 2016 is that there's this great quote from one of the leads on 2016. I think they won a GDC award for like best family game, and he was talking to some outlet about how meaningful that was to him, and how he realized how many people he was able to reach, and how like being able to reach kids and being able to create an impactful experience for families, for older people and younger people, just really like lit something up in him. And I understand how somebody in a certain phase of life might feel that way. So to see them kind of now with Rift Apart fully lean into that, and I think maybe realize a lot of what they were trying to do in 2016, and create this kind of what in film we would call like a 4-quadrant game. It's a game that appeals to all 4 categorizations that make up an audience. So I actually really like it for that, and I kind of like the new direction that they're going in. I think Ratchet and Clank in their stories has always had like a little bit of an issue with the sci-fi elements. There's always been a lot of like plot holes and weird like lore and things that the audience kind of wants to know about. And I think Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart does a really good job of like paying service to the things that they do want to focus on in the future, while also maybe just letting go of a lot of the past games and saying, don't worry about that. We're setting up kind of a movement where we know where this game is going to go in the future. The way this game ends, they very clearly are like, we are going to be exploring the disappearance of the Lombaxes in the next game. And I think that's great. I think that's cool. Was the story like entirely successful? No. I think I can see a lot of the seams in this game of a story that is edited, cut out, pushed back together. It's not ever entirely super clear in what it symbolically is trying to say. And then I think sometimes it is trying so hard to be clear in its messaging that it really hits you over the head with it in terms of what characters think and say. But yeah, I like Rivet, and I think that Rivet is maybe a bit of a missed opportunity. I always wished that Rivet got like a Miles Morales-esque Ratchet and Clank game that was like her own
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, no, yeah.
I would have been really cool, and I think like Rivet and Kit would just be a great game, you know. But yeah, the story is interesting because they really are going for a bit of a hard pivot in terms of their tone and narrative in comparison to things they've done in the past. But I think they find a lot of success. I think that this is the most that they are able to, thanks to a lot, in large part to like animation technology, they're able to create these kind of like dramatic moments and these emotional moments. And there's some really cool stuff towards the end of the game with Emperor Nefarious and how he's able to be like this really cool, intimidating villain. So yeah, I think that they, for something that is a bit of a departure for them, I think they found a lot of success. And I think what it signals to me is that even with all of this chopping up and stitching back together and trying to find your footing in a new world, new characters, new direction, they still managed to deliver this unbelievably good finished product. And that is so impressive. I almost can't believe the game is as good as it is, just because you can see, I feel like you can really clearly see some of the seams, especially when it comes to like bouncing between the two characters, how that works, when that makes sense, why that makes sense, how it functions in terms of the game mechanics. There's a lot of stuff there that's just not like fully formed ideas. But it's still okay. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I think where, like, this is why I brought Jake on the channel. He is the writer. He understands this stuff better than me. I just, see cute characters that are, making jokes to each other, and I'm entertained. But, like, I think where you see the seams is that the game is only, like, 10 hours long, and the fact that they had to introduce new characters and also establish this new darker tone and world, it's like the game could have probably been, like, a good 5 hours longer.
Yeah, I agree.
Where it's like, I can't remember specific parts off the top of my head because I didn't like replay the game. But if I remember correctly, there are parts of Rivet and Kit's story where it's they don't like each other, and then all of a sudden they like each other in 20 minutes later in the game, basically. And it's almost like they could have done with another mission there where Rivet and Kit are like exploring a world, and as they're going, there's like chatter between them. Oh, fuck you, I don't like you, and fuck you, I don't like you, and they kind of hash it out, and they like sort it out by the end of the level. Whereas it felt like a lot of that was just condensed down into 10-15 minutes, where it could have been like a whole big hour-long thing where you're exploring a full level.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there is a bit of an issue in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart with the dramatization through gameplay. I think you see a lot of dramatization through cinematics. Characters will have revelations or cross bridges with each other, change and enhance relationships through things that are almost entirely out of your control and not really tied to anything you're doing in the game. So there's never this narrative satisfaction from doing something in the gameplay. You're always just progressing forward. Instead of like doing something in the game that makes a character feel a certain way about you. Yeah. And I think you do really see that clearly with Rivet and Kit, because I get what they're going for. When Ratchet meets Kit, Ratchet is now this older, more matured hero that's kind of been in retirement, but has already had this whole relationship with Clank. And Ratchet knows how to talk to this little robot with problems, and like is so good at it when they first meet. And I think what they're attempting to communicate in the storytelling is now Kit has an experience with this Lombax that was so good to them, that was so friendly to them, and that was such a good like person to meet, that now when Kit sees Rivet, it's like, oh my god, another one. It's like, oh, how exciting is this? This is my person. This is my and I think that works in a sense, but it's not really given the it's not really given a lot of breathing room, since it exclusively happens in cinematics that go by pretty quickly.
Yeah. See, one thing like about Rivet and Kit's relationship, that one of the parts that I really liked was, and obviously this isn't, a big revelation, but the part where Kit realizes that Rivet, or no, is it Rivet realized? Yeah, Rivet realized that Kit was the robot that took her arm, basically.
Yeah.
And that kind of reminds me of, and this was one of my main contentions with points of contention with Ratchet and Clank 2016. It kind of brought me back to the day when Ratchet and Clank actually didn't like each other.
Yeah.
Where I actually think that's the worst part about Ratchet and Clank 2016, is that at the start, Ratchet and Clank become friends really easy, whereas in the original, Ratchet and Clank hate each other at the start. Like, they absolutely hate each other, and then, like, the first third of the game is kind of them starting to, become friends. And I like the fact that I kind of got a glimpse of that from that. But again, that whole level, like, when that revelation happened, and it was like one level, and then that was it done,
Yeah, 100%. I do think that there is a little bit of rose-colored glasses happening with the first game and Ratchet and Clank not being friends with each other. Because when I went back, I did not enjoy it as much as I thought I did. I enjoy the idea. I enjoy the idea of friction between the main characters and that ultimately strengthening their bond. But when I go back to that game, they're just kind of like annoying and stupid. And I think that so like something I like in this game is that historically in the Ratchet and Clank franchise, Clank is always right. And I actually like that basically this entire game is to the fault of Clank. Is because, Clank is looking around at their apartment, he's sick of Ratchet leaving all his stuff around everywhere, and says, I'm gonna fix the Dimensionator, go find your family. And that is not as addressed in the game as I would like. I actually think that maybe could have been a really cool source of tension. If there was a little bit of a, the whole game, Ratchet is doing this thing from the very first cutscene almost to the end of the game where he's like, hey buddy, I actually don't want to go find the Lombaxes. And he basically says that immediately. So there's really not a lot of satisfaction when he ultimately says it to Clank, because we, the players, have known that the whole time and have kind of just been waiting for him to finally say it. So if there was maybe like, imagine a world in which Ratchet is openly saying this to Clank, openly saying it at the very beginning of the game, but Clank doesn't listen. Clank is like, no, we've got to do this. This is, this is...
Sorry, is that not what happens?
I don't think so.
The opening scene, they do the big parade.
Yeah.
And then he presents him with the Dimensionator. I'm pretty sure Ratchet actually just says to him, like, buddy, I don't care, no?
He gets cut off.
Oh,
yeah. So
okay,
he starts to say it, and he's like, I've been meaning to talk to you about this, and then stuff happens. Yeah.
I only played that section yesterday as well.
Right. So I just think that sometimes there's a make the bolder choice. You can make the bolder choice, and I think the bolder choice would be giving them more friction between each other, and then there being like a lesson across the entire game about really listening to your partner, to your friends, to your allies, and actually hearing what they have to say. And I think you could see how that could be echoed between Rivet and Kit later.
Yeah.
So it's almost there. The parts are there, and I get kind of what they're going for, but I think it could be tuned a little bit better. I think the Ratchet and Clank series overall could use like a little bit finer of a hand with its writing. They're pretty good. They have a lot of the parts, but I think there's a little bit of a lack of finesse right now. Especially in the modern era of Ratchet and Clank that is trying to emulate more like modern animated movies, I think they could use maybe a little bit more finesse, maybe a more experienced hand, just for those character moments, fleshing out the symbolic action and making sure that that's dramatized.
I agree with you there, because I think the first 3 Ratchet and Clank games were, obviously they had their little commentaries on capitalism, but realistically the story wasn't super deep. Like, they tried to kind of make the story more mature in the future series, and they fell into the same issues there, where it was almost good. I can see what they were going for. And actually, if anybody's interested, there's a YouTuber called The Golden Bolt, and he does retrospectives, like big, long, hour and a half long retrospectives on all the Ratchet and Clank games, and he's absolutely amazing. I suggest
Ooh,
I suggest you
cool.
watch all of them. Like every single video is like minimum like 40 minutes to an hour long, and some of them are even longer. And yeah, he dives into everything from the story to gameplay. He reads all the dev logs. He goes back to old interviews. Like it's just absolutely brilliant series. But
I'm gonna check that out. Golden Bolt.
yeah, the Golden Bolt, yeah, very
Yeah,
good.
it's funny when we talk about this story stuff. This really reminds me so much of what I did professionally for many years, which was like being a story consultant on movies and just like identifying the key parts, trying to bring those to the surface in a way that's like a little bit stronger. And I think what's really tough is in game development, it's not just all about the story. You can't just sit there with the script and make it the best script you can, because you have to communicate with everybody else and make sure that you're also making a really good game. So it's tough. I understand that sometimes I'm asking for a lot because that's just what I'm used to.
Yeah, I guess in sort of every project there's always like priorities, but obviously with a game it's like, I mean, the reason why I'm sitting here, I love Rift Apart and just the Ratchet and Clank series in general, is that they're just that fun to play. And they're just so well made from that point. Their levels are so creative, all their enemies, the weapons. So I'm sure at some point they would want to do that, like improve the story. But again, it's like, we've 4 years to make this, you know?
Yeah.
And if we change this in the story, we can probably improve this, but then we have to work with the animators to animate this, and then we have to get the voice actors to do this, and then we have to get the coders to do this. And yeah, it is a big headache. And to be honest, it's probably a reason why. I mean, is there a 3D platformer that has like a super compelling story? Like I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think Ratchet and Clank might have the best, like over the course of its runtime. Like, well, it's been going for nearly 25 years now. Like, it probably does have the best, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, I also think it probably has like the longest running continuous story.
Yeah, and also the longest run of consistent good releases as well. Like, like the worst Ratchet and Clank game is, I don't know, by all accounts, I think it's Secret Agent Clank. I think people tend to dislike that game and Q-Force. But even like Ratchet and Clank All for One, I enjoy them games. And Into the Nexus was good. Like they're all solid, if not really good games. Yeah. So maybe it is just that's just a part of game development that maybe we just don't fully understand. And maybe it is just priorities at the end of the day. Because the story is good. It's good enough.
Yeah.
And it could be better. But what would I prefer? A better story or have the gameplay of Rift Apart? Like that super refined gameplay.
Yeah, and I will say, in credit to the story, I feel like what it has you doing in the moment always has a propulsion to it. Like, the overarching, like, themes and the like, literal script, that's, like, one thing. But part of games is, like, okay, you're here, where are you going, what are you doing? And I feel like the game's really good at that. The game's really good at pushing you towards the next thing and being like, get excited for this, get excited for this, get excited for this. It's in that way, I almost think that it is top of its class in that weird, almost intangible, like when you first start the game, that opening sequence, out of control. You get separated from Ratchet and Clank are separated from each other, and now you are in this other universe, and you've got to go to the, like, what is it, like, nefarious nightclub, and you see the sign, you know what I mean, and then you start going there, but then this thing happens, you get sidetracked, you get to go, like, all of those little pushes and pulls are so well done, and so many games wish they could do it that well.
Yeah, and again, I keep drawing parallels to Star Wars because this really does remind me of Star Wars, but that's the same. Again, I'm not into writing, I'm not into movies, but for me, that's why I love Star Wars, because it's like, where are we going next? What planet are we going to next? What are we going to see next? Yeah. Like, the character interactions mightn't be, like, top-notch. Like, even, like, the prequels, I love the prequels, but that's just because I grew up with them. But, like, you know, Revenge of the Sith is just constant. Where are we going next? Where are we going next? Where are we going next? So, yeah, I get what you mean. See, Jake, this is what you're here for. I'll talk about, well, you could talk about gameplay as well, but that's all I'm here for. You could cover the story. You're Amanda. You're the writer, so. To be honest, this discussion is a lot shorter than I think. Like, not that it's done yet, but we've done a good job of covering a lot about this game.
Oh my God, yeah. I've got some stray thoughts I just want to
Yeah,
throw out
you
there.
just
Things
throw
I
them out.
really appreciate.
Yep.
The costumes. I love doing like those little riffs, getting the different little gear pieces, the armor pieces, and just like having different outfits to wear and being able to change their colors. Like that
Yep.
kind of thing is so fun for me. I love having like, oh, I want my Ratchet to wear this, I want my Rivet to wear this, and it shows up in the cutscenes, looks amazing. Like all about that. Loved getting the like the golden bolts, unlocking those little extras. I loved being able to change Ratchet's wrench into like a Keyblade-esque
Yeah,
weapon.
yeah, it's so cool.
Good. Yeah,
Yeah.
so good. Love that stuff. So many of the weapons I find are really like fun, well designed, each have like pretty good identities around them. There's some little like things I might change, and I think if you're a Ratchet and Clank veteran, you're gonna see a lot of like familiar weapons with new coats of paint, which I think is okay. But some stuff is just like just as fun as it is to watch. It's like just as fun to fire off. The pixelizer, holding it down a little bit and then like waiting for it to like shine blue or whatever, and then like pulling it down all the way. That never got old. Was always obsessed with that. Yeah, so many cool things that. Oh, the enemy AI. I think this might be the first time in a Ratchet and Clank game where the enemy AI kind of has you figured out. They will lead their shots.
Yeah,
So
they're actually good. Yeah.
I can't believe it. And going back to the game is kind of funny because I like don't have my sea legs, and I can't believe how much I'm getting shot at. It's like I'm like, oh wow, okay, I actually gotta like juke a little bit. I gotta use my jumps and that like I think it's called Phantom Dash maybe.
Yeah, and that's sorry, the animation on that is so cool. It's like all the little like I don't know what you call like the trail of ratchets just going behind them. It's so well done. And sorry, I just have to jump off
please.
there. Like when it comes to the combat, so that Phantom Dash, while you were talking about that, if you play the game on normal, you don't really need to use that. But if you play the game on the harder difficulties, which I did, you really have to use that because, as you were saying, the enemy AI, like they lead their shots. So you have to be smart and you have to dodge and you have to jump. And yeah, it's definitely the best AI. And I think off the top of my head, I would say it's probably the best list of weapons too. But that could just be down to how fun and how good the game feels to play. Where there's, like, just off the top of my head, obviously, if the Agents of Doom, you have Mr. Zircon, absolutely amazing. But then I love the topiary sprinkler, you know, the one that turns them into, like, hedges. And then there was one, I believe it's called a Negatron Collider.
Oh,
and it's
no,
like
that's my favorite weapon.
Beam, and it just burn and just absolutely destroys everything. It's, just the weapons. And again, about the gameplay, is that I think this is the best Ratchet and Clank game for having the open sections, you know, the sort of open-ish levels where you can go and find the branch of paths. Because especially in the first 3 games, I found going for the golden bolts very tedious. They were just in like stupid locations. Like a lot of them were in locations that I felt like I shouldn't have been able to get. And the only reason I knew they were there is because I followed a guide, basically.
Right.
When I was a kid, I think I found like 2 of them or something.
Yeah, oh, totally. No,
So-
I totally agree with you. They were in places that it was like, if you didn't know they were there, you were probably never going to go over there. Yeah.
So it's just like I played the first level yesterday, and it was just all the branches. Well, the first 2 levels actually, the Nefarious City, and then the sort of like swampy. Even the swamp level, sorry. The first visit to the swamp level is very small in comparison, and then when you go back to it and it's open, and wasn't there a part where you're like on a big giant dinosaur, like pterodactyl kind of thing flying around?
Awesome. Yeah,
and there's just so many branching paths, and they did that with the other level. It was like, you know, it was like a monk shrine level. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
And that level was just massive. And I think that from the gameplay, that's what I remember the most, is them big wide open levels that were just so fun to explore. And I still don't have the platinum. I'm like, I literally have missing 2 trophies or something. That's all. I just never got that.
I got that platinum so close to release, like a sicko.
Well,
but also the I want to bring up the jet boots too.
Yep.
Oh my god, what a simple pleasure.
Yep.
what a sweet, just like simple. That was something that even in some of the older Ratchet and Clank games, the ones that had that ability where you could just take off whenever you wanted, it always sparked something in me.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it still does. And being able to incorporate them sometimes, like in your combat, like trying to use them to just like, go faster, get where you need to go. Like it really makes you feel like an aggressive beast with like these gadgets at your disposal. Love the jet boots. Such a good time.
Yeah, in I think it was, I don't know if they were in Tools of Destruction. They were definitely in A Crack in Time.
Yeah.
And even I can remember the Crack in Time levels because I only replayed them before Rift Apart came out for the channel. And the levels in A Crack in Time, I believe, they were a lot smaller. So even though you had those sections that you could zip around, they were fun. But then Rift Apart to me, it's like Rift Apart is Ratchet and Clank multiplied by 2. Yeah. It's like they just took all the best things about Ratchet and Clank, and I don't know if even it got a bigger budget. I actually don't know, like relative to obviously inflation and all that crap. Obviously, it does have a way bigger budget, but I wonder, did it get that much more of a budget? But that's that's what it feels like. It just feels like Ratchet and Clank times 2, and I just don't understand how Insomniac do it. Basically, they've been, to be honest, I think they've been they've been pushed to the wayside for too many years. And like Spyro 2 was my favorite 3D platformer of all time. It's like, first Insomniac makes Spyro. Spyro's amazing. And then they come out and then they just make like 20 years of solid Ratchet and Clank games. They also make Resistance, which is an amazing franchise, way better than Killzone, the best first-person shooters on PlayStation. And then they come out with Spider-Man. And even though like Spider-Man's just an open world game, it's like a very good open world game.
Yeah, I think Insomniac is like a true, really almost profound success story in the video game industry, because I know that for a while there, during kind of like the Resistance era, they had a bit of a reputation and were for like crunching their employees and for trying to do
big time.
And for like trying to do, and for doing so many projects, having all these different deals with publishers, trying to deliver XYZ. And as they have matured and changed, I think you can really see that company culture has changed. Yep. And the degree to which they've been able to retain employees, not rely on contract work, which I think is the secret killer of AAA video games nowadays. And
Redfall. Sorry.
Yeah, and all this. Listen, that's another podcast. Yeah, that's the one. We can. Oh my God, I can't. Yeah. I'm gonna go in on that one day. But I think that their studio shows how a culture can change and improve, and now I think should be seen as like a little bit of a model for how these things should or could be run. And for those reasons, I think they're one of those studios that it doesn't matter what they're making. If you tell me they're coming out with something new, I'm there on day one.
Yep. Like they I know they released, was it Fuse or was it Haze? Which one?
I believe it was Fuse.
Yeah, apparently that game wasn't good. I never played that. But like even so, they released all the great Spyro games, all the great Ratchet and Clank games. And then they just like go work with Microsoft and make Sunset Overdrive. And that game is so fun. Like it's pretty, it's just an open world game, but you can see that was the foundation of what Spider-Man then became. Because it's like they, Sunset Overdrive walked so Spider-Man could run. Where it's
what's funny too?
Yeah.
If you zoom out, you can actually kind of see that a lot of the corporate criticism of old Ratchet and Clank reappears in Sunset Overdrive. And that is kind of a development of that idea, a continuation of that idea. And I think it actually shows that maybe that kind of commentary just kind of plays different in a modern context than it did 10, 15 years ago. And I think a large part of that, if I'm being totally honest, has to do with the fact that like the like big now there's only like 7 companies that exist now, and that wasn't the case even like 15 years ago. So so the messaging almost has to change with that. So it's a weird thing to kind of like go back to now. Yeah.
So you're saying, are you saying Sunset Overdrive's commentary sounds a bit like dated nowadays?
I think it is. I think you have to change how you deliver that kind of message in a modern context, or else it won't be received as well. Because there's almost something about like the old Ratchet and Clank games when they would be like, oh yeah, these companies trying to own everything, trying to, this capitalist venture, and it's already happened. We
Amazon,
live in a world now.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
Amazon,
everything's
and then
Amazon,
Apple,
Disney. It's So you just have to. There needs to be like a different storytelling approach to that idea. And I think when I see it in Sunset Overdrive, it just feels like underbaked. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I get this. We were talking about this 15 years ago. A lot has happened since then. Do you have what else do you have to say?
Okay. No. I understand what you mean there. Yeah. So I'm trying to think. I'm looking here. Is it the best? So you said Deadlocked or Gladiator is your favorite, but is Rift Apart the best in the series?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I also agree. Yeah.
I think you can. I think you can make an argument for Crack in Time. I think Crack in Time has a lot of really good stuff going for it. I think the problem for me is that, to be totally honest, the technical enhancements are so profound to the experience of Ratchet and Clank. It's not just the graphics, but it's how they sell me on the characters, how they sell me on the world. It's so good. It's such a step up in Rift Apart that going back to Crack in Time, especially since that's like a PS3 game that never got a facelift, is hard. Yeah.
One last thing. Boss fights.
Yeah.
I don't remember the boss fights in this game being very good. If I can remember correctly, so obviously you fought Nefarious in his big ship thing. That's fine.
Right.
But if I remember correctly, you pretty much just fight. You know that big worm, the big metal flying worm guy? I think you fight him like 3 times, don't you?
Yeah.
And then you just fight like oversized versions of goons.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I just remember
sometimes big ships.
Yeah, I just don't remember the boss fight standing out. So
do you remember Juice?
Juice, no. Is he one of the pirate guys or something?
So remember there's like that creature that's being held captive and it's like powering that town and it's Juice. It's like there's a little monster named Juice.
No, I actually don't remember that part.
Oh, that for some reason that sequence, that whole thing really sticks out in my mind. And then you like reunite Juice with like alternate dimension Juice and they fall in love, which is a little weird because they're like
probably
the same.
they're probably like fully 100% blood related.
Yeah, exactly. So that part is weird, but yeah, that whole sequence really sticks out to me. And then I think boss fights. I think the arena challenges maybe stick out to me more than the boss fights do.
Yeah, I think I like the arena that it was like, again, just I keep going back to Star Wars. It was like you had the cantina where everyone was chilling. They were all sitting around having drinks, and then they were the ones that were watching and betting on the arena. It was wasn't it? It was like Zircons or Zerkies. That was like the planet, but it was like a shop run by them, I think.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah,
this game's awesome.
No,
I gotta,
it really is.
And before you go on to whatever your next thing is, I just want to say that I started playing this game to prepare for this conversation, and I will continue to play it.
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna beat it. I think I'm gonna because I'm just having so much fun. It's so good.
Yeah, I'm just kind of hoping. I don't think it will, but I'm very interested to see if it'll run on the Steam Deck. Just out of sheer curiosity.
Me too. I'm curious as well.
Yeah. So I think this is the section when we go into the rapid fire questions. Are you ready for this, Jake?
I'm ready.
Okay. Some of them, are one-word answers. Some of them aren't. Answer them as in-depth or as whatever the opposite of being in-depth is, as you like. Okay. So, who do you prefer, Ratchet or Rivet?
Ratchet.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. I agree. Okay.
Ratchet. She's got potential. Though.
Yeah. Ratchet.
I'm ready to fall in love with Rivet. I like Rivet.
A lot of people have, Jake. A lot of people have.
I know. People are freaks. All right, continue.
That was like half of my stream yesterday. Okay, Ratchet or Clank?
Clank.
Yeah, I love Clank.
I'm a Clank man.
Yeah,
I've
Clank
always loved
is
Clank.
laugh. Well, that was Scooby-Doo. That was Scooby-Doo.
Clank is an icon. Clank is so Like, think Clank has, dude, Secret Agent Clank.
Yeah, that whole section in Ratchet and Clank 3 is so cool. When he's like on the
remember
table.
Big Boy? Remember
Yeah.
Big Boy Clank? Remember?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, oh my God! And then just like little helicopter whirring Clank as a backpack, or being in like jet mode. Like Clank is so cool. What?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I honestly think he's one of the coolest robots like in gaming.
There's so many little buddies. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? There's so many in movies, in games, Banjo-Kazooie. Like there's so many little buddies, and I think Clank is maybe number one.
Clank is the buddy. Clank is the buddy that you want.
Best little buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna split this up into I guess 3 parts. Oh well,
Yeah.
okay. What's your favorite of the original trilogy?
Up your arsenal.
Which is
Number 3.
number 3. Okay.
Number 3. Number 3. It just had a weight to it.
Yeah.
Had
I
a-
love I love the fact that Ratchet that is also my favorite, but I love the fact
Yeah.
that Ratchet was like a commander.
Yes.
And you had like the 2 robot guys following you around. And then missions were very difficult when I was a kid. And your what you call it? Your Fortnite gliding. What you call it?
Oh my God, yes, but that was awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. Ratchet and Clank did it first.
That was so cool.
Okay, now what's your favorite of the future series?
So that's Tools of Destruction,
A Crack in Time and
Crack in
Into the
Time.
Nexus.
Into the next. Oh, Kraken Time, easily.
Okay, yeah, mine is Tools of Destruction, and it's only because I don't like the Clank puzzle sections in A Crack in Time because I'm an idiot. That's the only reason
I
why.
understand. I
Yeah,
feel like I kind of know what you mean. I think I remember those being kind of frustrating too. But for me, it's Kraken Time because I felt like that was when Ratchet and Clank decided they were going to be extremely dramatic.
Yeah.
And I just kind of liked it for that. I liked that there was this like sense of almost like campy soap opera drama, like life and death drama. Yeah, so cool.
Yeah, and then with Tools of Destruction for me, that was, I think, the first game I can remember playing on PS3.
Yeah.
I had the old 6-axis, the controller that literally was like a feather, and you got to aim it, and they had what was the gun that shot the tornado, and you got to move it around with the 6-axis.
That was a cool gun. That was a cool
I hated it. It just never worked. But
so fun.
and then also Tools of Destruction, random memory. I remember Sean Kingston's "Beautiful Girl" playing that song and playing Tools of Destruction. So there you go. Yeah.
Cool.
I was, what age would I have been? 10, 11?
Yeah, that's
something like
awesome.
that. Okay, so then what's your I don't know, what's your like favorite spin-off game then? I mean, we have Secret Agent Clank. I guess we'll include Size Matters as a spin-off game. And then we have Q-Force and we have All for One.
Okay, I'll give you the real answer, but my heart, I want you to know that the first thing that sprang out of my heart was playing as Ratchet and Clank in PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale.
Okay, no, that's good.
Yeah, that sprang out of my heart. I was like, oh my God, I loved playing as them. They were extremely fun. Different weapons, different cool little setups you could do in that game. But the real answer is All for One because I love Captain Quark.
Oh,
And
really?
Yes, and the opportunity to play as Captain Quark was very exciting for me. Yeah.
Well, do you remember the Captain Quark 2D platforming games that you played in
Of
Ratchet and Clank 3?
course!
Yeah, they were
Yes!
so cool. And then I think I might have another couple of questions, but one that I have written down is, what do you prefer, Ratchet and Clank 1 or Ratchet and Clank 2016?
Dear God, what a question. 2016.
I'm just
I know that's hot.
I'm just completely blinded by nostalgia. I'm gonna be real, because Ratchet and Clank 1 actually isn't even fun to play anymore. Well, no, I'll take that back. It's not that it's not fun to play. It's just not amazing. Like, they don't have strafing in it. It's a bit of a pain to play.
That's why I said 2016.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, and I see. I already know the answer to this question. I was gonna say Skid McMarx or Captain Quark.
Okay, yeah, obviously.
But I just love Skid McMarx because I'm 4 years old and his name is Skid Marks.
Genius.
It took me years to realize that.
No.
It was good time. And then I forgot to say my favorite spin-off is Size Matters, just because I could play it handheld because I'm a massive handheld gamer.
Yeah, I understand that.
And also it was the first title that we got, like the first like actual named title, where we just got
Yeah.
Ratchet 1, 2, and 3, and then Size Matters came out. And obviously I was
When
too young to understand what that meant, but
When I ask you, if I were to say, you're obviously we don't have a catalog in our brain of all of them, but if I were to ask you like your favorite weapon, does one immediately just like jump out that you pluck from your brain?
that was my next question.
Okay.
But you jumped.
Okay.
You jumped. So I think my favorite weapon. I think it's the Agents of Doom.
That's awesome.
I just love their design. Because they're both menacing but also really cute. You kind of want to pet them. It's like, you see a dog, like a wild rabid dog. Not that we have them over here in Ireland, but like, you still want to pet them. But you're going to get bit.
No, they're so
That's-
sweet.
yeah,
They're
that's
like
what-
a little pack. They kind of
Yeah.
like bounce around. It's like, oh,
They just,
it's so good. Yeah, I think something that Ratchet and Clank understands is that a weapon shouldn't just be effective and fun to use. It should, in the act of it being used, be fun to watch. Which
Yeah.
is why I think the topiary sprinkler is genius.
Yeah.
Because seeing that little spray, like in the arc it goes in, and then attaching to the enemies and making them turn into those shrubs, is like a whole scene unto itself. But it's also so readable. So when you're focused on the rest of the game, you kind of see that happening in the background. You're like, okay, I'm good over there.
Yeah.
But my weapon is the suck cannon.
From Ratchet and Clank 1.
Yes, from
Yeah.
every game in which it appears, I have always been a huge proponent of that. There is something that is so satisfying and fun to me, just about that idea, almost in like a childish philosophical way of just like sucking up all the little enemies that are coming at you and then like shooting it at some other guy in the back. I just love that.
Do
stuff,
you remember the level in Ratchet and Clank 1 where you unlock that?
I think so.
You know the one where you're on the ships, and the final boss in the level is one of those big guys they're almost spider-like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he's the final boss. And I remember struggling big time on that because in Ratchet and Clank 1 they didn't have the slowdown when you changed weapons,
right.
and also you couldn't strafe. So yeah, I'm just completely blinded by nostalgia, but I just love Ratchet and Clank 1 so much. And final question. If you have any more rapid fire questions, keep them coming because this is my favorite part of these discussions. Chairman Drek or Dr. Nefarious?
Whew. I think Dr. Nefarious. I love Chairman Drek, but I think I enjoy the performance of Dr. Nefarious so much
Yeah.
that I love the little relationship with the butler.
Yeah.
That to me is just really fun and funny. So I really like Dr. Nefarious.
No, I respect it. I prefer Chairman Drek just because it's kind of everything. I think, firstly, he's actually kind of menacing because Dr. Nefarious isn't. Like, he's just kind of like just a complete idiot. But Chairman Drek is like really scary. And then also, the final level in Ratchet and Clank 1 where you fight him is so
awesome.
cool. And I remember struggling big time on it. It was so difficult.
Yeah,
Well, it
that's
was
cool.
when I was a kid anyway. But and then also actually the boss in Ratchet and Clank 2, like the evil scientist guy that like makes the big fur balls. He was the final
Yeah.
boss, wasn't he?
I think so.
Ratchet and Clank 2 was my least favorite of the whole series. And it's
the
also
one I
my
remember the
yeah,
least.
I also remember it the least as well. So, anything else, Jake?
Yeah, there's just one thing I want to get off my chest. I've been thinking a lot about this, and I've been thinking about the future of the Ratchet and Clank franchise. And there is one thing that I would like them to try and fix, if they can, or address is maybe a better word. You just kind of mentioned it, actually. The quick select menu. I think that there's a way around it. And going back to these games and like holding down the triangle button as it's burned in my muscle memory and like finding the weapon I want in the list. There's nothing inherently wrong with this, but I do wonder if it could be done in a better way. And what I was thinking about was that I wonder if you could have. Okay, so in like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, there are a few weapons that are like blaster weapons. There's like the normal blaster. There's like the one that shoots out like little discs. There's like one that's similar, but it's like electricity. And I was almost like, man, I wonder if you could break weapons down into categories and have it be there's less of them, but you unlock the ability to change that weapon that's in your hand into one of these other things. So it's almost like Yeah, so it's almost like a quick select within the weapon itself. So that way you don't have to go into the menu to switch between the normal blaster and like the disc shooter. It's just like a button press. Okay, now I'm in disc mode. And I wonder if people would like that, or if it would take away from like the feeling of all these different weapons and they're all different. But that's just something I've been thinking about. If
Yeah,
there's a way to streamline. Yeah.
No, I know what you mean, like from a gameplay perspective, but I think the issue there is that you would end up with less chance of having cool weapons, because now all you have is the pistol that can shoot blades, it can shoot bullets, or it can shoot electricity. Instead of you have a blaster pistol, you have the Doom blades, and they all just look completely different. Now, I guess you could just completely change the weapon. Like, you know, it's not completely like it's a sci-fi game. You can make anything make sense.
Yeah.
So I think that's the only
Here's
issue.
what I imagine. Here's
Go
what I
on.
imagine. Yeah, here's what I imagine. So you know how you have like quick select right now and it's the D-pad?
Yep.
Okay, so imagine instead of having a specific weapon tied to the D-pad, it's up is pistols, right is shotguns, down is rocket launchers, and then left is like grenades. And I think that you could do this and then maybe like there's another button you press to go from like, okay, this is the pixelizer and this is like the shock blaster. When you're in those categories, you can keep all of the weapons. I'm just trying to get tighten down so I don't have to go to that menu so often, you know?
Yeah, no. I think that it definitely could be. Yeah, it could be. Maybe we'll go work at Insomniac and
right.
We'll figure everything out.
Insomniac, I would love nothing more than for you to give me a call. Say, hey, Jake, we're not offering you a job. Really, we have nothing for you. But hope you're well.
Just sit in the corner and like you can do coffee runs or something. Because
I would love to go hang out for a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, see, I'd have to fly all the way across to the West Coast. They are actually, where are they?
Durham, North Carolina, I believe.
Oh, where's that in relation of U.S. geography?
It's kind of southeastern of the country.
Oh, okay, that's not too far. Okay, I've flown to Orlando before. That's great.
I was just there. I was literally just there. So yeah.
So yeah, well then we should have released this beforehand because obviously all the people at Insomniac are listening to this. They just want to know exactly what us two are talking about. Now, Jake, I know I said I already had my questions out of the way, but 2 questions. When is the next Ratchet and Clank game coming out? Or is there a new Ratchet and Clank game? And is it going to be a Rivet game?
Yes, there's a new Ratchet and Clank coming out. It will come out in 2026.
Oh, really? That long?
Yeah, I think they're busy.
See, Insomniac have multiple teams.
I know. I still think they're busy. I think what we're running into right now is that they probably are working on a Ratchet and Clank game right now. But I do think that maybe there's a lot of like inter-studio assistance. So there are people that are like, you're working on Ratchet and Clank, but maybe for the next like 6 months,
you work on Spider-Man.
You're helping the development of Wolverine.
Yeah.
And so I think there's maybe 2026 is too far. I'm gonna change. I'm gonna change to 2025. And
okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and I think it'll be a Ratchet and Clank game. I do. I think Rivet will be present, and I think that there's a good chance the next game will be a Rivet game. I think we have one more. Yeah, I think we got one more Ratchet and Clank. I think they gotta go do this Lombax thing.
Yeah, see, I think I'd really like if and it isn't inconceivable that they would be working on a Miles Morales Rivet game.
100%.
The only thing is how do you title that? Because Rivet and Kit won't sell. Like that's.
I don't know. It might.
Will it? But because at least with Spider-Man they had Spider-Man Miles Morales.
That's
where
true.
Now it's like they can't have Ratchet and Clank, Rivet and Clank. You know?
Yeah, I hear you. Like, is it Ratchet and Clank : Ladies Night? And then is it no. But yeah, it's funny. I think we kind of already see.
Go to full Insomniacs, like 2 girls, 1 wrench or something.
That's pretty good. I think we kind of already see the seeds of how this is going to work, because it's funny. You can kind of draw the line in Ratchet and Clank switching between Ratchet and Rivet to Spider-Man 2 switching between Spider-Man and Miles. And like, I think that maybe this trend will continue. When we see the next Ratchet and Clank game, we will see cooperation between Ratchet and Rivet. And I do think that maybe Rivet is going to get such a hard sell in the next Ratchet and Clank game that after that is done, maybe they will be able to. You know what I mean? Maybe that by that point it will be Rivet and Kit. You do stuff in that game to kind of push them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I think what they'd have to do is similar to what they did with Miles Morales. Is Miles kind of plays slightly different, because in Ratchet in Rift Apart, Rivet was basically just I'm trying to think of the word. What do you call them? In Smash Bros. Dark and
Echo character.
Yeah, that's all she was. It was like there was no difference. She was basically just a different model and a different character. But like, it would have been cool if, and I think, see, this is where you get into it. This could cause issues. But if Richard, if Rivet had a different weapon pool.
Yeah, that I think is a the way that this game like just went through its developmental journey. I just think it didn't allow for that. But I do think in the future we will see much larger gameplay differences between them. Yeah. Cuz like right now they're like sharing each other's password to like their weapon subscription service, you know what I mean? And they're just like doing the same thing. But I think that they already have an opportunity for them to be different in that Rivet has that mechanical hand. And I think that we will... Yeah, and I think we'll see that come into the gameplay the next time we see her. I think she's going to have like all these like hand abilities, and Ratchet will have something else,
They could even like change up Kit's and Clank's moveset a bit as well. Yeah, there is loads for them to do, but... Yeah, okay, that was the actual final question. So, Jake,
cool.
Do you actually have anything? The final thing to say?
Love Ratchet and Clank. Can't wait to see more from them. Bonafide icons that I think maybe don't quite get the respect that they deserve.
They certainly don't. They certainly don't. They don't. Not many people. I don't understand. A lot of people. I understand I'm completely blinded by nostalgia, but a lot of people don't even consider Ratchet and Clank to be like anywhere in like gaming, like nowhere near the top. And it's like they've been going for 20 years, or nearly 25 years now.
Rift Apart is so high quality. I think it takes a lot of things that people really like about Uncharted, and it takes a lot of things that people really like about Doom, and puts them together in this like colorful, awesome to look at package that is just fun to play. They're absolute legends, absolute all-stars. Can't wait for the next game.
Yep. Well, I'm glad I brought you on for this, Jake. So, I really appreciate you coming on, Jake. That was very good.
Thank you for having me. I just want to keep. I'm going to keep coming through.
Jake, you can just keep. This can be. You can join this channel. It'll be Jadzy Gaming or something like that. I don't know, and we'll figure that out. But if you want to, I will have his Twitter down below. It's at Jake Knows It.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nose like the thing on your face.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think my nose is bigger than. Yeah.
No way, dude.
No,
this is my brand. This is my brand.
Look at that. Look.
Here's the thing. Everyone, honestly, my nose is like not that big, but it's my brand. It's my, you know what I mean? People just assume I've got a big nose. It's fine.
See, I think I win. Right. I'm gonna change my Twitter handle to Adam Knows It.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks everyone for watching. Follow Jake on Twitter. He's on Game Explain. I'm also on Game Explain from time to time. So join the Discord as well. I'll see you all on the next video. Goodbye.